Good morning, Cindy.
Hey, Kathleen, it's good to see you this morning. What's new with you?
Well, welcome to Rose and Associates Luminaries podcast. So we are in our 30th year of business, if you can believe it. And I decided, what could we do that would be fun as a 30-year anniversary for our company? And I thought, so many young people are now coming up through the ranks, and the next generation always is asking questions about how did you do this, or what got you into the business, and what would you do? So I started something called Luminaries, which is a way for our firm to reach out to those in professional organizations, commercial real estate, economic development, who really have been an inspiration to me personally, or just a great professional inspiration for those that would love to hear their story. So that's kind of how this got started. So with that, we were thinking through lots of people who have inspired us over the years. And of course, you shine out there as one among them. So I appreciate you joining me.
Well, thank you for asking me. I am really humbled.
Well, good. Well, I'm going to read a little bit about your bio, and then we'll kind of jump right into it, if that's okay.
Sure.
So Cindy Chandler is a CCIM and a CRE and has a host of 7 other designations behind her name, which we'll talk about in a minute. And she has her own training and consulting company, the Chandler Group, and has worked for numerous organizations in investment real estate, syndication, strategic planning, management, and marketing. You were previously a commercial developer and syndicator, and I want to hear about that. You've also served as an expert witness in litigation matters and in real estate for over 40 years. So yeah, I think I've been in real estate about 35. So we're right in that same genre. So you're in the elder class of stalwarts in the industry. Author of 4 editions of the Insider's Guide to Commercial Real Estate, which was published by Dearborn Kaplan Publishing, and various other organizations. You're most notably known as serving on the North Carolina Real Estate Commission, serving as its chair, and an approved instructor for over 25 years. So everybody throughout the Carolinas, if not the nation, certainly knows you as a valuable real estate and entertaining real estate instructor, and continuing education classes. And I think, you've had so many leadership positions in realtor organizations. You were president of the North Carolina Realtors, and civic positions, including the chair of planning and zoning and board of adjustment in Charlotte and Mecklenburg County. So just a breadth of experience. And most recently, you were given NAR's, National Association of Realtors, highest honor this year with the Distinguished Service Award. And as a result, CCIM North Carolina endowed a scholarship in your name. So kudos and congratulations for just a long history. So with that in mind, tell us about where you got started and when and with who. What was your first job in commercial real estate?
Well, my first job actually was in multifamily that allowed me to transition into commercial real estate. I just finished college. I was a buyer for a department store. I was living with my parents because they traveled extensively and wanted someone to take care of the house. And to tell you the truth, I was lazy and it worked for me. And I saw an ad in the paper and it said leasing agent for a brand new apartment complex in Daytona Beach. Well, here I am. It is February in Indianapolis. We have not seen any type of blue sky for months. There's snow on the ground. It's just cold and miserable. So I applied. And when I went for actually the job was for something, I think, in Indianapolis. And when I went there, they said, no, we think you'd be better at the Daytona project. Would you take a job in Florida? Well, I'm 22 years old. It's like, when do I leave? So I started with the company. I managed apartments. I opened new apartment complexes. Back then, they were all adult apartment complexes. It wasn't against the law to say no kids. And I was one that helped open these apartment complexes. Well, that landed me eventually in Charlotte, where I started working in the department for Paragon Group. And I was overseeing some apartment management tasks. I was acting as the director of personnel because we really didn't have one. So I could do that on the side. And the head of our commercial development department, which was brand new, came to me and said, look, I need a property manager for my commercial stuff. It's not really a full-time job yet. It's going to be. And you're familiar with the company, you're good with paperwork. Do you think you'd want to do this? And I said, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, it's something new. And that's how I got into commercial real estate. I got in through property management. And I went through the training. I got my CSM, certified shopping center manager, went and got lots of knowledge on how to do it. I was managing apartments, and I went from that to the commercial. And I had industrial, and I had office, and I had shopping centers. I had all three, and not many, but a few. And they were spread out throughout North and South Carolina. And that's how I got started.
Really? Okay. And then you talked about syndication. So where and when did that come into play?
Well, I took a break and from working and found out that didn't do anybody any good. I would call my husband every day at work and report what housework I had done. And finally he said, why don't you just like get a job? So I started looking for a job, found a job with the Cogdell Group. And what they did is they did medical office building development. And the way that the package worked, it was a strong relationship thing. As we would go to the hospital and say, look, you need a medical office building on your campus. And what we'll do is you give us a ground lease. We'll build the medical office building. Tell us which doctors you want to have in there. And then as far as the equity part of the financing, we will syndicate it and raise that money from the docs. That allows the docs to lease space and then have some sheltered income through the syndication as a limited partner. That also ties them to the building a little bit better, so they continue to have that loyalty to the hospital. And it allows you to recruit doctors and have office space right there on your campus, adjoining the hospital usually, which saves them all kinds of time. And what we do is we talk to the docs and tell them how much time they're going to save by being right here. So it works all together. And I got my securities license, and my job was to sell. Well, my job was to find the docs, lease to the docs, go ahead and do their space design with them, get that all squared away, get it all priced out, get the construction started, but sell the syndication to the doc. And once all that part was done, it was turned over to property management.
Okay.
So I did that in several states.
Okay. And so we know kind of how that's evolved over the years, right? In terms of hospitals and docs and medical office buildings and real estate investment trusts that are now doing that work, right? And to a certain extent. So is that what led you into the development arena?
The development arena I got into when I was doing the medical office building, and a little bit when I was in the property management with the Paragon Group. When I was doing medical office buildings, what I was doing there was I was doing the development of the medical office building. Sometimes it's on campus, sometimes it's not. Sometimes we were buying a building and doing conversions on it, but I did that part of the development. With Paragon Group, I did some refinancing of properties, and I did some development while not Paragon, sorry, I totally forgot. I was with Crosland. That's where I did my development.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, I forgot about Crosland altogether, and I just saw Mark Irwin at Bricktops this weekend. Yes, I did development at Crosland. They brought me in as a junior developer. I developed some shopping centers, some office space, and that's where I learned how to do development and financing.
Okay. Well, obviously you had a tremendous amount of experience in the whole realm from leasing, management, you know, all the different facets of commercial real estate that you can get into. And that's what we always talk about with folks about. It's not just leasing and sales. There's so many different facets of it. So what created that passion that you have for education?
It was in the 80s. And a friend of mine, a good friend of mine from Crosland, Bob Mingle, said, you know, he says, I teach pre-licensing and the broker classes, and we really need a course on development because you really understand how to do it. You know, all the different parts. He says, I only know some of the parts. And would you consider doing a course on development? And I said, well, gosh, who would come? He goes, well, let me worry about that. So I put together a 2-week course on real estate development and taught it at Queens College through Queens and through Mingle School.
Yeah.
And that's where I got started.
Okay.
So then he had me, you know, can you sub for me one night? I'll give you my stuff. And there was a little bit of that. And then the main day instructor at the Mingle School took a job with the association and they offered me that. So I became the day instructor doing pre-licensing for the Mingle School of Real Estate, now Canopy.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So obviously you have a passion for education because you have 9 designations, Cindy. That's incredible. So CCIM, which we both, you know and met through that organization, right? And me as a former faculty on CCIM, and you with your continuing education and doing the continuing ed courses for the North Carolina chapter every year that everybody enjoys. You're a counselor of real estate, CRE. CDEI, what is that?
Certified Distance Education Instructor. And this is a designation where you take a 2-day course. There are exams throughout, then there's a final exam after the 2 days. And this is for people who want to teach online courses, whether they're synchronous or asynchronous.
Okay. And DSA?
Well, that's the biggest deal. That's the Distinguished Service Award that I'll have bestowed upon me when I go to the NAR meetings in November.
Oh, wonderful.
Been announced. And so it was kind of a reveal, and I will go through all that. So that's, to me, it's probably I was very surprised by that designation and very humbled.
Oh, good. DREI.
That it stands for Distinguished Real Estate Instructor. That's through a group I'm active with called REA, Real Estate, REEA, Education Instructors. And what we do is we get together at least once a year, a bunch of us, it's, 400 or 500 people, and we trade ideas, we do presentations, and you go through a process to get that. It's probably one of the hardest designations I've ever gotten.
Really?
Didn't
Okay.
cost as much as CCIM, but it was tough because you're having to do live instruction and then people sit there and grade you. I mean, it's just terrifying.
AHWD.
Yes, I'm proud of this. This is At Home with Diversity. I also teach residential courses, and I think to be effective, I need to understand the lingo, the way it goes. Yeah, I sold residential for 1 year, Kathleen.
Yeah.
And I
So did
sold
I.
some.
Oh, two. I did too.
You too. Oh, well, you're going to
With
appreciate
a
it.
gold jacket with Century 21.
Oh my God, you wore a gold jacket. Oh, well, I was with Pulte, and I was selling either on-site neighborhoods, or I was doing custom construction. And they hired me to do this job. I sold some houses. Okay. I mean, I didn't sell a lot, but I sold some houses. But they called me in. I thought I was getting a promotion. They called me in and they said, we're not going to renew your contract. And I said, oh, are you going to put me on salary? Because I'm thinking, oh, I'll be sales managers. And they go, no, we're letting you go. And I went, why? And they go, well, we feel you do not have the personality to deal with the public on an ongoing basis. That's what they said. I went like this, and they went, well, there you go. And so I was gone. I did it for a year. I appreciate what residential brokers do. It is difficult, and they work very, very hard for their money. So I teach some residential courses, CE in particular, just because I've been doing it for so long. So I'm taking courses that expand my horizons. At Home with Diversity is a course on how to market your properties and how to behave in a way that encourages and makes all people feel welcome.
Okay. Well, and I always say that I think the residential agents almost have it tougher than commercial because they have so many more consumer protection rules and laws, and they're changing constantly. RSPS.
Resort and second home properties specialist.
Okay. All right. GSI.
Gold standard instructor.
Oh, okay. Well, we already knew that. SRES.
Senior real estate specialist.
Okay. I mean, it's just interesting, right? You have so many initials, and a lot of times people don't even know what they are or what they mean. So that's important. And particularly, obviously, you love learning as much as you love teaching learning. So of all your accomplishments and accolades, which have had the most impact? Which ones are the most inspirational to you or special to you?
Number one, CCIM scholarship in my name.
Wow, nice.
It's when Steve Rich called me and told me, I kept saying, well, how much money do you want? I thought he was going to ask me, to pay, every year and to fund somebody. And that was fine. And oh God, don't tell him I said that, but it was fine. But he says, no, we're going to honor you with this. Well, keep in mind, my world has been commercial real estate and education. What better to do that than to have an endowed scholarship in my name?
Yeah. Wow, that's wonderful.
It's just incredible. So that's, I am proud of my CCIM designation. It's not easy. I got it in 6 months from start to finish. But it was hard, but that's all I did. I mean, for 6 months, pretty much that's what I did.
Right.
But the DSA for the realtors is probably my highest honor.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's really special. And when we were coming up, I keep talking about the next generation. I know you were a glass ceiling breaker, as was I. So what do we tell young women in the next generation who are coming up? We had it pretty tough, right? As women were rare in the commercial real estate industry, and even as an instructors, right? And educators. So do you think it's harder or easier for them now?
I think it depends what they're doing and where they are.
Yeah.
Back when we were there, we were frequently the only woman in the room. People thought we were the secretary. They weren't sure why we were there, and they would say things. They didn't know how to behave. I had one lender finally look at me at lunch and go, "You're handling all the Crosland money. I don't want to screw this up. I don't know if I'm supposed to stand up when you stand up or not. I don't know how I'm supposed to be around you. My secretary says treat you like equal. My wife says treat you like a woman and a lady, and I don't know what to do." Well, so these men really weren't sure what to do with us, but the facts were we were left out. So what I would say to people now is go in on your merits. If you know somebody who can help you, use it, take it. The men do. That's how it all works. And if you have someone who can recommend you, get the recommendation. But once they crack that door open, you're on your own. And you're going to have to show you're as good as the other woman. I'm not going to say the other man because it's just, you got to be as good as everybody and be as good as yourself. Don't let your gender get in the way.
Right. Well, good. Yeah. Cause that's good advice, Cindy. And, when I think about not only the next generation and how work has changed, right, with the pandemic and all of the stuff going on, the geopolitical disruptions and events, from wars to pandemic that have changed the way we work and use commercial real estate, the changes in retail and industrial. What do you see for the future? What influences your work and how you're staying on top of how we have to morph and change? Because, that old adage is, it took 20 or 30 years to get from, the Wright brothers to supersonic jets. And now things change much more rapidly,
Well, you're
Part of
right.
it is technology, which, both you and I have struggled with, even between the Zoom and Teams meetings this morning. It's technology is everything, and artificial intelligence. How do you think we're gonna see the things and work and evolve going forward?
I think that I've been doing this since 1973. And no time while I was working in real estate or education have I seen so many opportunities and so many things that will probably change, and I'm not sure how they'll change. We learned during the pandemic that we can function away from the office. However, we also learned that a lot of people wanted to be in the office. And we learned that people didn't want to be in the office. So I think we're going to see more of a hybrid work type. We're going to see our work being changed so it can be done just in front of a computer or from a device. I think we're going to see more of that and less of being in the office by 8 o'clock, going to lunch together, and then leaving the office at 5 or 6 o'clock. I think we're not going to see that with as many people as we did before, which gives us opportunities with all that office space. And that gives there some other space for people, particularly who are not there in the office, to come in and share some time if they need to. People are going to have to really rethink how things work. In the meantime, industrial's just blowing up all over the place because we're moving so many goods. And frankly, during the pandemic, we all learned how to really shop online.
Right.
And a lot of people who'd never done it did it and like it. And those who liked it before like it even more. And all of our vendors are allowing us to do it. Heck, we can even get a doctor's appointment online.
Right.
And just sit in front of a screen. Wow. So it really doesn't matter where we live. So we can live where we want to live and just work from there. Seeing a lot of that in residential real estate.
Right. Well, and we're seeing that people, like yourself, you have a place at the beach. I have a place at the mountains. We can do what we have to do wherever. But part of that, I think, leads us to being able to do work whenever. So I think this whole notion of, you can work in your pajamas at 10 o'clock at night or at 7 in the morning with your coffee or whatever, but it changes that whole work-life dynamic in a new way, doesn't it?
It can. That's a great point, Kathleen. I make it a point that At 6 o'clock, I set my computer up to do its backups and to go through and do its virus scan, which slows my system down. I got a pretty powerful system, but it slows it down. But what it says to me is my computer is not at work. My computer is doing its thing. And I make a point to walk away from my office, spend some time with my husband, eat dinner at a normal hour, watch some mindless TV, or watch Discovery Channel if we're in the mood to learn something new. That's pretty much how it goes now.
Yeah.
But it's real easy to have no hours. It's I can do it late at night. I can do it early in the morning. I think we did a little bit of that, but you're exactly right. I think the lines are much more blurred and will stay blurred because we all learned how to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's not only the balance, but setting boundaries, right? Is that it's okay to take Sunday off or Saturday off and not be expected. So it's almost like Back to the Future, right? Where, I remember in the 80s, if you didn't show up at the office on Saturday morning and work until noon, you weren't serious.
If you weren't the first one in the office.
Yeah.
I mean, and people and your boss would come in and go, wow, you really got your nose to the grindstone. And that was a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's almost come around full circle, right? Except it's online instead of at the office. So it's been kind of interesting. So as we wrap up, Cindy, what's next for you?
Kelly, Kathleen, I do not know. I see opportunities out there, but to tell you the truth, when I see them, part of me just goes, oh, I just don't have the desire or the energy to go in all in. And I just saw something in the CRE post. They're looking for somebody who can help with procuring cause. That's maybe something you want to follow up on. And I looked at that and I went, well, actually, that is something I testify on. And I looked at it and I went, do I really want to get involved? I mean, do I really want to, work with someone? I don't mind giving advice or saying, here's what I've seen, but that's not what this was for. I mean, this is probably an engagement. And I'm like, I want more time at the beach.
Yeah.
I just got 2 cats. I want more time to play with my 2 cats. I'm at a great point in my life where I can do something or not do something. And I don't feel guilty when I'm not doing something. I used to, and I've gotten it down now. So if I'm just sitting around on Thursday, not doing anything, reading a book, reading stuff online, just kind of hanging, I'm not anxious going, gosh, I should be doing this. I should be looking for prospects. No, it's not that. I just don't feel that. So I think I'll continue to teach for the next couple of years. I'm trying to get a stable of commercial instructors. As you know, Kathleen, you're the one I'm looking at to pick up and take some of this along so that I can lighten my load, number one, but also if something happens to me, or if I decide to retire, I don't want to leave the commercial peeps without quality instruction.
Well, that's good. That's good testimony for anyone else out there interested in the instructing thing. I was happy to take the one course, so we'll see how that goes. And like you, I'm trying to do that work-life balance, and some days I want to just read a book. So I understand that, but
that's okay.
Yeah.
That lets your mind take a little break, and that's okay, but it's awful hard to have it okay.
Yeah. Well, good. Anything else you want to share in part as we wrap up? Thanks so much. It's been great just visiting with you and getting a chance. I know many students in the class probably are thinking, gee, who is this woman and what was her path and how does it go and what are all these designations? So I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing some of that, which we'll share with our folks on our website, and you can share on LinkedIn or wherever else, and they can get a chance to hear all about the life and times of Cindy Chandler. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the virtual classroom again soon.
And I do some live commercial just because my commercial organization, the Charlotte Region Commercial Board of Realtors, likes live classes. So I'll be doing live classes in November and again in the spring, just 1 day's worth. And it's always interesting when I do those because it just goes back like we never left.
Yeah. And it's fun for everybody to get together and see each other in person again too. So.
Yep, it is.
Good. All right. Well, thanks so much, Cindy, for being our guest on Luminaries. And we'll see you all in the next quarter when we have our next Luminary podcast. And we're working on our guest list. So it's always a surprise. We never tell everybody who's up next. So
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay, Kathleen. Let me go ahead and stop that recording. You can cut that out. Oh, sorry.